Today we start out with enough protein to last us the rest of the Camino. If only we could store it like camels.
Nick, who lives in Barcelona and he develops video games on the iOS, he said that we have broken the Camino code on how to order bacon and eggs because, wow, did we get them this morning.
On your way out of town, just before the bridge, you'll notice a small building, a hermitage, a little chapel. It honors Santo Domingo. Fittingly, it sits right by the important bridge that he built. Now, as you leave, remember this: the Parador that we see today was once the pilgrim's hospice that Santo Domingo himself founded. But before that grand building ever existed, Domingo would feed pilgrims on a long wooden table set up right by that very river that you're crossing. The table became known as the Mesa del Santo, the Table of the Saint. As the town grew, he eventually built a more formal hospice, which is the predecessor to the Parador. It was a humble structure, nothing fancy, just holes for windows. But they still used that same long wooden table to feed pilgrims on. And here's the strange part. Legend says that when pilgrims ate at that table, not a single fly ever came near it. Now that's a miracle, because if you've ever eaten on the Camino in the Middle Ages with no refrigeration, then you know that flies usually show up before the bread does. I love this Camino. We're leaving Santo Domingo de la Calzada, but don't leave it out of your mind, because Santo Domingo has an apprentice, a Padawan, a disciple. Yes, there is another. And he has his own strange stories associated with him, just like his teacher. And also like his teacher, he continued to build the Camino Road, but we're going to catch up to him in a few days. I don't want you to forget this connection, though. Less than a kilometer out of town, you'll come to a landmark called Cruz de las Valientes, the Cross of the Brave. Why that name, you ask? Well, in medieval times, this was the site of a combat between two locals, one from Santo Domingo and the other from Grañón. They had a land dispute, and back then, people didn't exactly call lawyers. Instead, they'd hand the matter over to God in what was basically a divine duel. The idea was simple. Whoever was right in God's eyes would win. And the guilty party? Well, let's just say he didn't have to worry about anything. Ever again. Now, in this case, the resident of Grañón came out on top, and this cross was placed here to mark the spot. Well, this did keep things out of the courts.
I'm tired of trucks driving by and stirring up dust on this road. It's my Camino. Boom, 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 boom. We have no idea how they harvest the sunflower seeds, but they are in the heads there. So if you know how, leave us a note in the comments.
We now enter into Grañón, and it seems to be the truck stop capital of this region. Although you have a few steps to climb, there's a great stop at the beginning of Grañón with tables and chairs underneath the shade to rest, accompanied by a food truck and restrooms. For many pilgrims, sleeping on the church floor in Grañón is a highlight of their Camino. It's talked about in such high regards that we almost were tempted to try it out.
A lot of people talk about sleeping on the church floor in Grañón. I don't know if this is the church or not, but I've slept on the church floor a lot of times in my life. It doesn't sound like fun to me. So if you've done it and you've enjoyed it, let me know what it's like to stay at the church in Grañón.
Hey, if the door is open, we're going to check it out and see what's inside. We love ourselves some church. This town is referenced in a document dating all the way back to the year 884. Now that's one old city. Pilgrims love the unique atmosphere of sleeping inside a church. They treasure the communal meals and the shared prayers and the cool stone interior that feels like heaven on a hot Camino afternoon. And sometimes there's a pilgrim's mass, and on rare occasions, guests are even treated to a sacred chant echoing throughout the stone walls. Oh, whenever I see old stone steps leading somewhere mysterious, I just can't resist, so let's climb up and see what's above. From here, you get a closer look at the stained glass, packed with Camino imagery. A modern pilgrim with a gourd for water and a staff, the Camino shell, grapes, which we're leaving behind in vineyard country, and wheat, which we're walking into. On the left is the cross of St. James. And on the right, oh my goodness, what in the UFO mystery is that? It's actually Jacinto de Compostela, a quartz crystal named after pilgrims who used to carry it on their journey to Santiago. They used it as kind of a talisman, the Camino version of a rabbit's foot. Funny thing is, the mineral doesn't even occur in Santiago itself, but you'll spot it in the Camino artwork from time to time, like right here in this glass. You turn around and you get a sweeping view of the church itself. I love the artwork in these places, but sometimes it gives me pause. For example, why are there toddlers under the feet of Jesus? My best guess is it's representing Catholic theology relating to purgatory. Either way, it definitely makes you stop and just say, And sure enough, there's even more Camino imagery in the other stained glass windows. Honestly, I'd love to just roll out a sleeping bag and stay the night right here on the church floor, but as a youth pastor back in the day when lock-ins were a thing, I've already slept on more church floors than a church mouse, so we're going to keep moving.
All right, we're leaving La Rojoya and entering Castilla y León, which is right after Grañón, and it's the largest of the autonomous regions in Spain. And we will be in it for a long time.
As we leave the grapes and wine region, we enter into wheat country.
Looks like after leaving Grañón before going into the next city, looks like they might be building the road here for the pilgrims, but right now it kind of goes down and underneath the bridge. Yeah. Redecilla del Camino in Castilla y León.
4 kilometers after Grañón is Redecilla del Camino, and there is a church that was closed, but it's supposed to have a baptismal font from the 12th century. So if it's closed, find it on Wikipedia. It has engravings that depict heavenly Jerusalem that rest on 8 columns, and many sources say that a serpent is coiled around the base, which signifies the triumph of the church over the devil. But I couldn't find the serpent. You know, he is kind of sneaky. They do have a metal sculpture of the town's treasure, but I'd rather have seen the treasure. And this is where they grow sea monkeys. Dim bones, dim, dry bones, and bones, and bones, and dry bones, and bones, and bones. Gina, don't leave me!
Castillo de Gado. Dun, dun, dun. Gina Llewellyn.
Wasn't me.
This is diet water. If you drink this, you'll lose a lot of weight. People doing the Camino have a big heart.
Hey! It's starting to look a lot different compared to the vineyards that we were walking in. And I think it's even going to get more flat as the Camino continues before we see the beautiful hills of Galicia.
Belorado de Rioja. Yeah. Well, it's the birthplace of Santo Domingo, who built so much of the road behind us and the bridge and all the miracles in the previous church we talked about. So I don't know Spanish, but that probably says the birthplace of Santo Domingo de la Calzada.
I had read that if you look behind the church, there is a fresh spring that certainly Santo Domingo used that spring as a child. I think I found the spring, but today you're not supposed to drink from it. But back in Domingo's day, you could. You know, they had stomachs of iron in those days. But this is the back of the church, so it has to be the spring. If you look closely, the spring serves as a mosquito hatchery for those of you that would like to take home a souvenir. They don't mind, I promise. Take as many as you want. Luckily, the church was open. There were these figures of Jesus during the Passion Week that were on poles to carry on the shoulders for parade and festival events. And the church certainly does pay tribute to Santo Domingo. You know, the chicken church guy. Plus, they even have an older, baptismal font that we saw just a few moments ago, and Santo Domingo himself was baptized in it when he was a baby. Not only was he born here, baptized here, drank from the spring here, but his boyhood home is here as well. There was a memorial marker, but no arrow or sign that would say, this is it, this is the house right here. So I can't be 100% if I got the right one or not. Plus, we need to keep walking west. We have more to see.
There she is walking down the street singing doo-wop-dee-dee-dee-dum-dee-dee-dum. She looked good, she looked fine.
On the road ahead, we couldn't tell if the construction man was real or not. The closer we walked, the more uncertain we became. Finally, we figured it out. There was a solar panel that was powering his arm to continually wave. And honestly, if you were driving this road, you'd swear it was a real person flagging you down, and you would definitely slow down. I couldn't help but wonder how often they changed the clothes of the mannequin. And then a little further down the road, we actually saw two real human beings dressing up one of their automated traffic controllers. Imagine that job description: professional mannequin stylist. On our first Camino, this was the leg where our Camino family grew. We added a new member, Lucy. What we didn't realize at the time was that this would also be our last leg walking with these wonderful people who had made our journey so special. We didn't really have time for formal goodbyes, not to Lucy, our newest family member, nor to Masha, our oldest family member, nor to Rita, the one who brought joy and laughter to every step. This was our very first Camino family. And who knows, if someone hadn't needed to go to the hospital, maybe we would have walked into Santiago together. That's the Camino for you. Goodbyes come without warning, but the footprints you made together leave a lifelong imprint on your heart. From there, we passed through the small village of Villamayor del Río and finally arrived in Belorado, a place that we will never forget. In fact, we've been here more times than any other village on the Camino. And before I tell you why, let me kind of introduce you to the area first. As you enter Belorado, look up to the right and you'll notice some interesting cliffs. You can hike up there and explore, but you'll need the energy. We did it on our first Camino, though to be fair, we were 2 years younger back then. Legend says that the caves in those cliffs were once inhabited by saintly hermits. All we found, though, was private property, and castle ruins, well, they were truly ruined. So don't worry, though, there are much better castle ruins elsewhere on the Camino. Still, the views are great. Off in the distance, it almost looks like a snow-covered mountain or hill, and I believe it's limestone. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but we also spotted a vein of it on our hike. Keep your eyes up, and you might also catch a glimpse of the town's resident stork. I used to raise doves, and their patterns are similar. They mate for life. Many storks spend the winter in Africa, then return to the same nest in Spain. Around mid-March, they lay 2 to 5 eggs, which hatch after about 4 weeks, and the young don't leave the nest until 3 months later. They're fun to spot on the Camino, and you might even be lucky enough to spot a flock of them. Yep, the Camino really is magical. In the Iglesia de San Pedro, you'll find that half the year it houses the statue of San Vitoris, a local martyr. Though technically he was born in Burgos, and guess how he was martyred? I'm sure you guessed correctly. He founded the first Catholic church in Guam in the 1600s, but just 3 years later, the island's chief killed him with a sword to the head. And certainly there's other things to see in the church. I just wanted to show you what fits our channel for Our Strange Camino. I realized that we ate at the same restaurant in Belorado on both Caminos. I can't decide if it was because the food was just that good or because I just wanted another picture inside that old Volkswagen van. Immature? Sure. But hey, at least I'm consistently immature.
You know the Hollywood stars that they have in the ground? Well, in Belorado, they have something similar. In the ground, they have the handprint and the footprint of various iconic people. And there is one that's actually on the Camino of Emilio Estevez, his handprint and footprint. And then just a hair off the Camino, like the churches behind me, And then behind me is here. You just take a left. There is Martin Sheen's. And I will put the coordinates in the video when you see it.
Here they are, the footprints of the one and only Martin Sheen. They're only a few steps off the Camino, so it's really worth the quick detour. If you'd rather stay right on the Camino and keep your head down, you'll come across the handprint and footprint of the one and only Emilio Estevez, Martin Sheen's son in real life, as well as in the movie The Way. Come on, you knew that, right? If you didn't, then go ahead and admit it in the comments. You know, admitting is the first step. Emilio's handprint is right before the wooden pilgrim statue on the right. So yes, Hollywood meets the Camino. No red carpet, only hard pavement. On our first Camino, we arrived in Belorado, hiked to explore the caves, enjoyed lunch and then dinner. But while we were eating, Gina said she wasn't feeling too well. Maybe tomorrow she'll feel better. Well, she's still asleep, so I head down for breakfast. Such a great spread today. When I get back, she's waking up a little bit and she tells me she's really sick and she may need to see a doctor. I asked some locals if there was a general practitioner in town because we wanted to do a COVID test and see if he could help. They told us that we would have to go to Burgos, to the hospital, and implied that Spain doesn't have general practitioners the way that we do in the US. So we say goodbye to Masha and figure out how to use the public bus to get to Burgos. Gina sleeps most of the way there, and when we arrive, she goes straight to bed, hoping that maybe a day of rest would help her bounce back. I'm still just trying to find a general doctor, but everyone's telling me the same thing. You have to go to a hospital. We did a COVID test that we got from the pharmacy. It was negative. So while she's resting, I decide it's time to get a haircut. You know, less wind drag whenever we resume our walk. And why not? I have the time, so let's try acupuncture. And the cathedral looks stunning from the therapist's office. I also pick up a thermometer, and when we check her temperature, oh no, sure enough, yep, it's high, and her throat is not looking good. We've never been to an ER in the United States, but I guess we're going to try one out here in Spain. We tell the taxi driver that we need to go to the hospital, and he instantly puts on his mask and takes us there. They asked if we had insurance, and we didn't. They seemed slightly annoyed by that, but they were very kind and helped us with the paperwork. I told them I'd pay cash, but they said there's no way they could take cash and they would bill us later. Then the doctor walked in, and his shoes forced me to pull out my phone and snap a picture. Trust me, they were just screaming, "Photo shoot! Photo shoot!" He didn't speak English and our Spanish was limited, but when he looked at Gina's tonsils, he said, "Ufa!" Yeah, I guess we knew that was not a glowing report. Through Google Translate, he explained that it would be dangerous for her to continue walking until she healed up because her tonsils could rupture, and if she wasn't near a hospital, her airway could close. He prescribed medicines to us and told us to pause the Camino until she got better. She needed to take food with her meds and wanted something familiar. She never eats this at home, but it was familiar. Taco Bell. I know, please don't roast her in the comments. She was sick. While Gina healed up, I toured Burgos. I mean, she was staying in a nice college dorm, but there was no air conditioning, so I was able to pick up a fan at one of the China market stalls. By day 4, she finally had enough strength to glance at the cathedral, and it really looks especially awesome at night. That's also when we met Pepe and Denise, who live close to us in the States. We connected through Facebook because we are in the same Camino chapter that meets about once a month or so in Oklahoma. And since Pepe is fluent in Spanish, we ate really good that day. That's also when we saw these giants in the plaza during a festival. Because in Spain, there's always a reason to celebrate something. We ended up in Burgos for 5 days while Gina recovered. By the last day, I could navigate the city without the use of Google Maps. I was telling the locals about where the good places were to eat. So what caused her strep infection? Well, looking back at the footage from 3 days prior to her getting sick, I found this clip.
You're going to spit out a worm on you.
Let's just say that I think the puppy got her sick. Or maybe at least gave her worms, but that's an entirely different video. We're going back to Belorado because we didn't want to miss a single foot of the Camino carrying our backpacks for the first time. So in the next video, we'll keep the continuity, leaving Belorado on foot and walking into Burgos properly, sharing the pilgrim's experience and not the hospital one. We do buy travel insurance now. We like this one plan that we have that covers us when we're more than 100 miles from home. On another trip, we had a flight delay that was overnight, and I almost had forgotten that we had insurance, but within a week, they reimbursed us for the hotel and the Uber. By the way, you might ask, how much was that hospital visit anyway? About 6 months later, the bill did arrive in the States, and it was around $80. We had to wire the money to an address, so we just sent them $100 in case the exchange rate had shifted during the transfer. Or maybe it was our way of tipping the doctor. We should talk about tipping in Spain. Or we should talk about cow tipping. Oh wait, no, that's an Oklahoma thing, not Spain. But here's the deal. If you watched this video and you did not hit the like or subscribe, that's basically the same as tipping a farmer's cow in the middle of the night. And that's not a good thing. So hit that like and subscribe button and keep the cattle on all 4 feet or all 4 hooves. And we'll see you in the next video as we leave Belorado on foot.